Hello and welcome back to Retfurb. So on today's video we've got this 1957 limit fan that I'm going to be stripping down, repainting, giving it a general overhaul and tidy up and just bringing it back to good working condition. So as you can see, I'm just showing around, you can see the condition of it. It's quite scratched up. I haven't actually turned it on, to be honest, because the wires are a little bit dodgy on it, and obviously I don't want to be turning it on. I did this once with a mixer thinking it was all okay. I was told that it was working okay, and every time I switched it on, I tripped the electric, and then once I opened it up I realised why, that all the sort of metal inside the electrics were exposed. So with that, I obviously, I learnt my lesson. As you can see, I'm just stripping it down, just undoing the fan part here, so you can't actually get the fan out without taking this shroud off first, so I'm not really sure why I did that. Now I'm just taking the actual protective shroud off, because there's two nuts either side that hold the brackets in place. So these just need to be undone and then that can be moved out. So generally, I'm not expecting anything too badly to be wrong with this. I'm pretty sure the wiring inside is going to need replacing, because the plastic and the rubber sort of surround on the wiring normally deteriorates on something this old. Yeah, that's going to be the main thing, and then just painting it up. Originally, it's like an off-white sort of creamy colour. I think it's obviously dulled down quite a lot over the years, so it looks worse than what it is, but I'm going to be painting it in a straight white colour just to freshen it up and make it look nice and clean. So just going back, I'm just stripping it down, taking the bottom base plate off. Unfortunately, the bottom base plate is flocked, so I don't actually have a method of doing this, so I'm just going to leave it as it is for now, and then potentially in the future I might redo that. But I mean, you're not going to see it when it's on a desk anyway, but it's just more, trying to get it all nice and up together. So just continuing now, stripping it down, taking the parts off it, just snipping this wire. Obviously I'm not going to be reusing that again, and just pushing out the small O-rings that the wires go through. Now with these, one of them was quite badly deteriorated, the rubber on that, so I won't be reusing it. But the other two I'm going to reuse. I couldn't find any that were as close to match to the ones that are on here. Obviously I didn't look too hard because I'm sure there is some around, but they weren't too bad, so I'll just clean it out and reuse them. The one of them that was deteriorated, it's on this piece that I'm holding now, that one won't be reused. The cable's just going to go through without it. It doesn't actually need it so much on there. And just undoing the screws which hold the rotating part of the head mechanism. So with this bit, I've skipped part of the recording. I don't know why it missed it, but there was two long threaded bars that go through each side to hold this head part together. You'll see it when I come back together, and I will point it out again then. And then once you've undone that, you can separate those two side bits. So now just going over, cleaning up some of the non-painted parts. So all I'm going to do with this, I'm just going over a bit of WD-40 with a bit of wire wool and just going over and cleaning it up. I'm not going to do anything else other than that. So obviously it's not going to be immaculate. It will still be tarnished, still be marked, but I'll remove all of the rust that I can on it. It'll just be pitting and stuff that will still be on there, but overall it'll look okay. I just didn't want to paint it and potentially cause any issues with that in the future, with it flaking off or anything. I just thought I'd leave it, clean it up. It won't be exposed to any water. I'm presuming previously it's been left in a damp place, and that's why it's sort of tarnished and rusted. So now I'm just going around sanding up the parts that need painting. This was pretty easy, to be honest. A lot of it just flaked off, and on this, the badge that was pinned in place, I just got a small Dremel, remove the pins, and I'm just going to glue that back on afterwards. Ideally I didn't really want to take it off, but to paint it properly it needed to come off, so yeah, obviously that's what I did. And now just moving on to the other part, and then it'll be painted and then ready to go back together. Obviously this is in the future, the part's been painted. Now I'm going to be looking at changing the wires inside on the motor mechanism. And just applying some solder ready for the wire to be fitted back on that part. So one of these little tabs had come off, so I had to glue that back in place before I soldered it, which I did, and it's all okay. And now just fitting the housing of the head back up. So this is the part where the rubber would have been fitted around the cable that comes out of that housing, but because it was so deteriorated I didn't reuse it. But this cable that I've used has got a slightly thicker outer, so it actually fits in there quite well. So going back to those rods that hold it together, you can see there I'm putting them back in, and now just tightening up. There's 2 nuts either side, so it goes right the way through all 3 parts, and then you've got a nut either side which holds that together. And just checking that everything's moving all okay. And now I'm going to put the oscillation mechanism back on it. I'm just greasing that up, just making sure to work a load of grease all in and around. The old grease in there was a bit dried, so I just clean that and just replace that. And this is just held in place by 2 Phillips type screws or crosshead screws. And now just fitting up the oscillation mechanism again. I did actually remove that. There's a small pin that held that in place, so I removed that and then put it back on afterwards, after it was painted. And now just putting the switch part back in. So again, this just screws back in place, and then we can start looking at the wires and replacing those. And just feeding some new wire through. And then clamping that in place before I start stripping it and doing the soldering. So there's various bits on here that have to be screwed in place, and also some soldering that needs to be done. I've got to solder also the cables that come down from the head that go into the main base plate of the fan. And just connecting that mechanism back up again for the oscillation to the front part of the head, and then fitting the head onto the base. You can see it's starting to come together now. You know, there's not a hell of a lot more left to do on it. It's mainly getting the fan back on, and obviously the shroud that goes on the front of it. But I'm just going to give the fan a polish before I go any further. Now, again, it's not absolutely immaculate. There's some scratches on it, but I didn't want to go too far and potentially take the outer coating that's on the fans off of it. I presume it's some sort of plating that's on there, which I didn't want to remove. So I just polished them up. So there is some scratching on there, but it looks a hell of a lot better. And again, with this, I'm just going around with a wire wall as a WD-40, just removing the surface rust. Like I say, and I keep saying it, you know, it's not going to be immaculate, but it will look a hell of a lot better, look a lot cleaner. But without replating it, you know, it's not going to be immaculate. And again, the same on these, wire wall, WD-40. I just sprayed a little bit of solvent-based degreaser on there, but I'll go back to the WD-40 and just going around cleaning all that off. And they actually look pretty good, to be fair. A hell of a lot better than what it did. You can see there how good the fan looks, the blades, and also those brackets. You know, there's some scratching on the blades, as I say. And now we're fitting the shroud back on. At this point, the fan's almost completed. It's just mainly the shroud to go back on and the bracket, and then we can take it for a test run and make sure it's all working okay. So this is the fan now, all done, all back together. So as you can see, it's come out really well. Obviously it's not perfect, you know, there is still some tarnishing on the metal, but I've cleaned it off and made it look a lot better. This goes for the same bits on the back here as well, which again, not perfect. It's a bit tarnished, but it's a lot better than what it was. So now we're just going to do a quick demo just to show it working. So as you can see at the moment, it's just on the non-oscillating mode, and this is on the fastest setting. So the weird thing on this fan, which you'll find is different compared to a lot of modern fans, is on one setting it's the fastest, and then when you put it on number 2, it slows down, which is unusual because obviously on most fans you go 1, 2, 3, 4 for instance, and 4 being the fastest, whereas on this it's the slowest. So yeah, something a bit different. I almost thought there's something wrong with it to start with, but when I looked into it a bit more, apparently that's completely normal. So I'll just turn it back off again now and put the oscillation mode on. So to do that, there's a button on the back there, and you just push that down. Again, showing it on the fastest setting. I did notice when I first put it on the slowest setting that it was sort of struggling a little bit, which I think was the motors, where the bearings are, the motor drive goes through. It needed a bit of oil put in there after refurb. I think what it was is because it was dried out where it had been degreased and everything. it just wasn't moving around quite so well. There's 2 flathead screws there which just need to be undone, and then you can pour some wet lube in there. Obviously you don't want to put too much in there. I just put a few little drops in there, which helped. So yeah, it's working really well. I'm really happy with it, to be honest. I'm thinking I'm probably going to put it in my little office with all the rest of the stuff that I've got. But yeah, it's proper solid engineering, which I like. It's a bit similar to the cake mixers that we've got, which are Kenwood cake mixers, again made in the UK like this is. And you can just tell that the quality of it, you know, the build quality, the main housing, you know, and all of this is just solid. It just is a lot nicer to work on. You know, you look at some of the new modern stuff, and you know, there is obviously some good quality modern stuff about, you know, there's no denying that, but you know, in general, a lot of the older stuff, it was sort of built to last, and again, I'm sure there's stuff nowadays which is built to last, but quite often it's plasticky. You know, the fan blades are plastic. Now, I'm not saying this is the most safest thing to have in the house, especially with kids and they put their finger in there. I'm not really sure how well they'd fare against the metal blades, even though they are like an aluminium plated blade. I still wouldn't want to put a finger in there. But yeah, I'm really happy. I really do like it. Like I say, there's some tarnishing on some of the metal and stuff here, which I did get off as best I could, and the same on these parts here. It's a bit tarnished as well, but again, you know, you look at it compared to what it looked like before with the rust on it, it looks loads better. Also the colour, obviously I've gone for the white instead of the sort of off-white creamy sort of colour, I don't know what you call it, which is probably the original colour. You know, I know it would have probably aged over the years a little bit and probably got a bit darker, but originally it should have been probably an off-white sort of colour, maybe, I don't know, something like that. But I just did it in the white just to freshen it up. There's not a lot else I can say about it, really. Yeah, another successful refurb. Thanks for taking the time to watch the video, it's really appreciated. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.